time for Flames Unfiltered, your spot for Calgary Flames hockey talk. 2 points here, 2 points there. Some pretty, some pretty ugly. But the Flames are climbing back into the playoff picture. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Flames Unfiltered. I am one of the hosts of the show. I am Brock Boeser, and Kyle Lewis, the other host of the show, is with us this week after a slight hiatus last weekend. As Kyle was on vacation. Good to have you back, Kyle.
Yeah, glad to be here. Lots of mostly positive things to talk about.
There is. Did you have a good vacation?
Oh yeah, fantastic. I'm still on vacation from my my other occupation, so I'm just trying to soak it in as much as I can before I go back to reality next week. But you know, realistically, we're in the home stretch for Christmas, and I'll go and I'll do what needs to be done, but don't ask me for any extra. I'll put it that way.
Oh man, yeah. I understand you had a birthday too, so happy birthday! And
yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
That's good, man. That's good.
Yeah, so, another year older. Don't know about wiser, but still here.
I know. I had a birthday a week ago too, and I don't feel any longer. I feel older actually. This week,
like this year over last year. You mean?
Just this day over yesterday, I feel older.
Well, I think you got a touch whatever the hell I had a few weeks ago.
Kyle was on the injured reserve a couple weeks ago, and I'm on it tonight. So we're gonna power through, and we'll get it figured out, and we'll do it, and it'll all be good. But lots to talk about, and honestly, Kyle, a lot of really good to talk about, and in a season where we've had some crap to talk about, we finally get to talk about some good. So Flames on a little bit of a mini roll, I would say, or back. You know, is this team back to their winning ways, or is this just another blip, and then we're gonna go on another 4-day bender?
I mean, I want to believe and see reasons to believe that it's a turn in the right direction. Like, I think they're finally kind of what we hoped they would be in terms of being a decent hockey club. So I think the ebbs and flows of the early season are behind us. So now we get to see what they're actually made of. So I think it's legit. I think they're legit. I don't know where the ceiling is yet. It's too early to say, but it's we're seeing some positive signs for sure. Definitely. Consistent positive signs.
I know. I agree. I feel a little better watching the games. I do. I feel a little bit better. I'm a little bit more excited to turn the TV on. I'm a little more excited to get into it, I guess, as a game day goes through. So that's all good. And we got a good show tonight. We're going to recap the 3 games, 3 home games, 2 of them which were wins. And then we will discuss a variety of different things with the Monahan return, some comments that Daryl Sutter made. Mangiapane and Dube are kind of heating up. And then Kyle and I want to talk about our favorite Flames jerseys. Because Kyle and I are both jersey guys, so we talk about that quite a bit. And then we're going to discuss some really important stuff with Jacob Markstrom and that situation and how that's all unfolding and our thoughts into that saga. And then get a question for Kyle. If he would even entertain the thoughts of acquiring a Brock Boeser, who's been all over social media the last couple of days as a trade target for the Flames. And then we'll wrap with a preview of the 4 games and a trip out east. And let's hope this trip goes better than the last trip out east. And jam-packed show, Flames Unfiltered. All right, Kyle. Let's start with the Montreal game. Montreal comes to town. Does it piss you off when Montreal comes to town and it seems like it's as loud when they score as it does when the Flames score?
I'd say louder, honestly. So yes, it does. That's what that fan base is. They do it every barn in the league. So you can't get too worked up about it, but it's a little frustrating when your home fans struggle to drown them out. But they're a very passionate bunch. So the game was much more frustrating than that.
Yeah, maybe I'm way off base on this, but shouldn't that go down as generations go by?
Well, if that were the case, the wave would be long gone, wouldn't it, in Calgary? Because I hate that, and they're still doing it.
Me off when they do that, and it's so dumb. Who the hell starts that?
I don't know, but it's not just one person; it's a group of them, and it's just like I don't care, like tie game in the second period kind of thing, or down by a goal, but it's like the last 5 of the third, you're trying to get the tying goal, and they're doing the wave. It's like if you're a player and you see that out of the corner of your eye, how does that not suck all the life out of you? That's what I want to know.
I can't think of another pro sporting event where you see that anymore besides Calgary Flames hockey games. Can you think of one? I can't even remember the last time I saw it in another arena.
If I did, I'm just suppressing it. Honestly, I don't know. I have no idea.
It's brutal.
It's the worst.
Markstrom starts in net against Montreal, and it starts off shitty right away. Just shitty. As Monahan kind of gets I don't even know, as a half breakaway. I mean, it was a defensive breakdown, but anyways, in on Markstrom, and I don't know what he's doing. I have no idea what he's doing. He's flying out to the blue line, and it results in a goal, and we're down 10 seconds in, and it's been a problem that's plagued us all year.
Yeah, that was, I mean, and that was the game where he admitted afterwards how bad he's been. Now, granted, it wasn't a high-scoring game. You can't hang the entire thing on him. I thought the team was very flat around him as well, but it's indicative of a pattern we've seen from him all year. He's letting in soft goals at inopportune times early in games, and we'll get a little bit more into that later on, I guess, but it's finally get to the point that it can no longer be ignored in terms of who's playing how many games or getting what starts, right?
Exactly. The bright spot in this, I thought the Flames had numerous chances early, but just could not cash in. They couldn't cash in, and then things kind of got worse for Markstrom in the third period. He kind of had a little sparring match with Josh Anderson, which I didn't really even see where that one came from. And Mangiapane is a tough guy and gets a penalty, and then the power play goal just kind of puts the dagger in it, and a Flames team that outshot Montreal 21-5 in the third period, and we come away with no points. I was frustrated after this one.
Well, I get frustrated. I mean, obviously in that case in particular, but also just the general, like, the Flames will outshoot their opponents 19 out of 20 games, right? If not a higher percentage than that. So 21-5, yeah, it sounds impressive, but there's still no results. So I'm becoming less enamored with the shot volume, because I realize that shooting percentages have to balance out, but over time it's like, okay, like I don't care how many shots they got. Like, they didn't get it done. They didn't execute, obviously. Their power play obviously didn't do them any favors.
Well, there's a huge difference between shot volume, because I'm with you. I'm all about shot volume, and I probably always will be, just because I'm the law of numbers. I mean, it's going to work out. Yeah. But there's a big difference between quality shots and perimeter shots.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like we get, honestly, if my perimeter shot's coming from Michael Stone, I'm okay. But I feel like we get so many perimeter shots that are just no traffic, no rebound, no nothing.
No, they're useless. I mean, a lot of them they're just useless. I mean, the puck's going in the right direction, but you're not doing anything with it. I mean, hockey's all about cashing your opportunities. I mean, would I rather have more shots than the opponent? I mean, anybody would, but it's far too often that's been the case, and there's been absolutely no results. So, I don't know. It's one of the more frustrating things to watch, because it'll balance out. It's like, well, you can't just wait for math to help you, right? You got to figure this out on your own, and that's a matter of personnel usage, line matching. I'll tie this in just briefly to how, like, the fourth line gets chucked on the ice and just gets their heads beat in possession wise. Like, that's gotta stop. Now we talked a little bit earlier about goaltending being a more contentious issue, and rightfully so. So hopefully we see player usage be the next thing that's like, okay, we need to adjust this, because this is a good hockey team. There's just some decisions that are very suspect.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny, because like I always try to compare to last year, and we probably shouldn't, because this team's a hell of a lot different. And
yeah, for sure.
We probably shouldn't. But like last year, I find myself comparing line usage to last year, where I thought flowed the lines pretty well, and situation wise, played and dispersed lines appropriately. I very seldom last year was like, what the hell is Sutter doing? But I find myself more this year doing that. And I had somebody tell me, well, just, that's the way it is when you're losing. When you're winning, you don't question shit. It's happening. You just don't question it.
I would agree with that, generally speaking. Now, because I had the same observation. Like, I remember thinking all these awful things last year, except for early in the season when things hadn't quite settled in yet. But yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. Like, your mistakes are like it. It's the same thing in the jobs we do. Like, if I'm the top sales guy in a given role, but I'm still making mistakes, well, nobody's going to care about the mistakes because I'm still performing.
Yeah.
But if I'm not selling and I'm making mistakes, well, they'll become a lot more glaring, right? And that's exactly what this year.
Yeah.
It's frustrating,
It is. I remember, speaking of doom and gloom last year, remember that losing streak we had right before the Christmas quarantine thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, man, did everything I see in the first quarter of the year just, go? I mean, I was actually worried.
Well, it was it was a great reset. And actually, I hadn't really thought about that since, I guess. But if that doesn't happen, the team doesn't go on the run they did and have the season they did. So
I know. Things happen for a reason. It's funny how it works. Mm-hmm. Washington comes to town Saturday night. Vladar gets the start. Richie's out. Rooney's in. Really slow start for the Flames. We were killing penalties right away. And honestly, I look back at that game and I look back at how critical Vladar's saves were on the penalty kill early in the first period. And I think that doesn't happen. And he lets in a couple, and wow, is this game a different game? But we come through the penalty kills unscathed, and then Coleman gets a good pass from Ruzicka and buries it, and we're up 1-0.
What a great shot too. He's got his shooting is very underrated, I find.
Him and Toffoli are definitely our guys, and Lindholm is too. I mean, we expect so much more from him now. So.
Yeah. True.
I think Coleman's been really good this year. And then Dube, he takes a roughing penalty, which pissed me off so bad. And it's 1-1. And I don't know why that one pissed me off so bad, just because, I don't know, the situations. And then we go on where Darcy Kemper gets into it with Toffoli and then has to leave the game because of a head injury. And I watched that over and over, and I barely thought Toffoli touched him.
I don't know if it's just him being cautious or if he actually had cause for concern, but whatever the case, yeah, I thought the same thing. It wasn't anywhere near what it was made out to be.
What'd you think of that slash?
Oh, man. Looked like Ron Hextall. It's unreal.
No call either. It just, I don't understand.
No, there's the inconsistency in officiating is unbelievable. No matter who you cheer for, what players you like, with the tempo of the game, it doesn't seem to matter. It's just all over the place.
Was this a game where in the third period you could start to feel a little bit more comfortable? Like when Ruzicka scored that breakaway, I was just like, I felt pretty good that game. I did.
Well, it's a very confident goal. It was like Huberdeau in Philly a few weeks ago. I mean, it was that perfectly placed shot, like from a player that you're starting to expect can do that. Yeah. When you start to see plays like that, that's when I think when you kind of know your team is finding their groove to some extent or another. Now they were still scrambly at times. There was still a bit of a mess in the game after that against Arizona, but generally speaking, we're starting to see some consistency and some results.
Yeah, and some of those guys that we were seeing struggle a little bit are starting to step into the role that we expected them to and produce a little bit more. Monday night, Arizona comes into the Saddle Dome. Vladar in that again as he's getting a string of starts. And I don't know what you thought, but after the first 10 minutes, another one where Calgary had to kill 2 penalties, but I was like shockingly impressed with Arizona's speed.
They're a good young team. They have a lot of very talented players, right? I mean, they're a ways away from doing anything, but I agree with you. I should clarify that. I mean, it's definitely impressive, but it's just one of those teams that has a lot of really good pieces, and they're kind of flying under the radar still. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them compete for a playoff spot maybe as early as next season.
I don't know. I mean, I just took them lightly, I guess. I was shocked. I was pleasantly surprised at how good they were. And then, Calgary ended up going out of the first period with a 2-0 lead that was not deserved, because we were outplayed drastically. And I thought we were flat. You know what? Until the latter part of the game, I thought we were flat pretty much the whole game.
I agree, 100%.
We're sitting here looking at an Arizona team that was on the 13th of a 14-game road trip. and we're looking flat. I'm thinking, what the hell? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, did you get that feeling too, or were?
Oh, that wasn't a good game at all. I mean, it's that age-old thing, right? I mean, they just don't seem to show up for teams that should be able to easily beat, right? I mean, they came away 2 points, but it was anything but pretty. Vladar was, a big part of it again, I felt. I mean, not so much the volume of saves, but just how important the saves he made were.
Oh, freaking 10 Beller with a minute to go.
Oof, man.
Oh, think about that goes in. That guy is there to make the big saves, and I was finally happy that Cgy gets off the schneid and buries a power play goal to put us ahead in the third. And I mean, that's a big goal for Cgy too. A big goal.
Well, he needed it. He was the hottest, probably the hottest flame to start the season, and then just completely tapered off, which happens to any player, right? But I didn't find he was as quick in those games either. Like, he just didn't seem to be as into it. So it's nice to see him really stamp out with a great shot too. Like, he's one of the guys you're going to lean heavily on throughout the season. That's why they brought him here. So that was a big one. It's between him and now Mangiapane and Dube heating up and collecting their points. I mean, that's the type of secondary scoring that's had us all screaming to try something like bringing up Matthew Phillips or changing the lines or something, right? So if they can get going, we'll be in much better shape.
Let's talk about Mangiapane and Dube, because I did think this week was a much better week for them.
Oh,
and
100%.
I felt like they were different players on the ice.
I think Dylan Dube has been listening to this podcast because you've been running him down for week after week, right?
I know. I don't know if I'm done running him down. I'm getting like, this week was a good week for him. I thought it was a really good week for him.
Yep. If you can find some consistency, it'd be an important piece for sure.
Yeah, and Mangiapane kind of looked like a different player again. He looked like the grits and grime Mangiapane that we're used to, and I think he's too talented to not see. Like, when I looked at those guys, I was more worried about Dube not coming out of it than I was Mangiapane.
Yep.
But one guy that is struggling, and we just talked about a minute ago, coming up with the key goal is Cgy. He hasn't been setting the world on fire at all, and really hasn't been a lot of talk about it in Calgary that he's been struggling, but he really has.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why that is, other than to say, but the other guys we just discussed have struggled so much that I think it took some of the heat off Cgy, because they hadn't shown much of anything this season. At least he had the hot start, right?
Yeah.
So with the ebbs and flows of the season in your lineup, I would expect that a lot of it just has to do with, okay, he's already been really good. Somebody else has to step up while he kind of cools off. And now they're all kind of starting to get going. So
that line is so critical to this team's success.
Oh, man, unbelievably so.
It is. They're just, because you know what you're going to get every night from Backlund and Coleman. You just do.
Yep, 100%.
And having
the most reliable players on the ice.
And having
those two and Chris Tanev, the most reliable players the team has. Yep.
Yep. And then you put Rosisko with those two, and it's just, I don't know, he's blossomed. And that guy, he's one of those guys when I watch every night, I either want to hug him or punch him. Because he's like, he's one of those guys that just, he looks like he could just take control of a game. Mm-hmm. And then there's nights where I'm just like, son of a bitch, this guy is so lazy sometimes.
So you're basically just alluded to every scouting report that we shared on the show 2 weeks ago, because that's what everybody said. He's got all the tools, he just doesn't always show up.
Am I seeing this wrong? Like, there is shifts. I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. And then there's shifts. It's like, whoa, what the hell? Now you're making me mad because you're good. Because
making a liar out of you. But I mean, that's why you put a guy like that with the two players that he's with, because they're so reliable and they're so good on both sides of the puck. So
it's a good
there, that's the best. That's where Tkachuk learned to be the great player that he is. Yep. I mean, a lot of it's his natural skill, but like, if you want a young guy to be good in this league and not be a hindrance as he learns the right way to play, those are the guys you put him with.
Yeah, he's been impressive. He's really been impressive.
Very much so. Yep.
Sean Monahan comes to town on whatever night it was, Thursday night last week, and was it not? I was so happy to see him back and producing Sean Monahan of 4 years ago.
Yep. That was great. Yeah, that was probably, of all the returns that we've seen or will see this season, obviously the next big one will be Johnny Gaudreau. Like, Monahan's to me is the most emotional, just because he's been through so much, right?
I mean, this guy, I mean, he was choking up, you know, saying thank you, and Calgary's a special place, and all the right things, and it felt, I mean, it was heartfelt. I mean, this guy grew up here, and this guy, I don't know, he's the one guy that left this team, and not on his own will even, that I just have been cheering for, and it's been so fun to see what he's been doing, and I guess the rest of Calgary has too, because he got like almost a minute standing ovation, lots of cheers, and then Daryl Sutter comes out and says that if he'd have been healthy and signed long term, he'd be the captain of this team.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, and it is. Now I don't know if that's, you know, when you say something like "don't know what you got till it's gone" kind of thing. I don't know if he's just saying that as a nice tribute to Sean Monahan, or if he truly feels that way. I hope he feels that way, but I think the reason that tribute was so heartfelt and so warm is that this guy gave everything he had. He was a perennial 20 to 30 goal scorer from the time he was a rookie, and he was the first glimmer of hope that this team had post Jarome Iginla.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he transitioned the team from that era to the era we're in now, and it was him more than anybody else in my mind.
He quickly became my favorite player, and I know a lot of people. I think they didn't like that he wasn't outgoing, I think, and I thought it was kind of comical. I actually, you know, this guy ran through a brick wall for this team, and I think that's what Daryl Sutter was alluded to with that high praise, is that, I mean, it was evident to every single person that follows this team how injured he was and how he gritted it out every single night. And even when success, I mean, he was playing on freaking limbs that, you know, me and you couldn't walk on, and he's taking heat when he's struggling. Yep. He's not pushing it off like Mike Smith did. He's taking the heat.
That's a nice analogy. He did. And I mean, I'll throw in a personal side. He was the nicest player I ever met on the team during that time. Very, very cordial, very outgoing, very pleasant to speak with, and obviously very involved in the community. But yeah, he got a lot of flack for things that nobody really understood the severity of his injuries. To this day, I don't know the severity of them. I know what they were, but I never lived through them, right? He couldn't walk comfortably from everything that we know. And yet he was still always around the team. He tried to play several times. I mean, when he got shut down for the playoffs last year, I'm sure it killed him. And I'm sure it killed him to be dealt the way that he was, because he deserved. There was a point in the summer where I suggested maybe if Monahan's healthy, you try him with Huberdeau before the Cgy thing all happened. And I still believe that could have been a good option for the team if he was healthy enough. And now he's in Montreal having modest success and on the power play. And he's going to be a great trade chip at the deadline for some team, because he still has a lot of value, but he just
I worry like if we would have kept him, you know, and let's say we would have signed him, I would have worried about his injury till
anybody would.
I mean, I think every team's gonna, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, he's been good. I wanted to get your take. Daryl Sutter had a couple of quotes this week that I thought were interesting. And I know one hits close to home because you're a strong proponent of bringing up Matthew Phillips. What was your reaction when he said that? I mean, I'm not going to read the quote word for word, but basically he said he watches the Wranglers more than he's ever watched a farm team, because he's right there every day. And he says that the AHL is a long ways away from the NHL.
I think it's kind of bullshit, honestly. I mean, it is. We all know that it is. The NHL is the best league in the world, but to me, that's him trying to fan the flames of a fan base that's screaming, and me chief amongst them, to bring up a player that deserves a chance. I mean, you don't know anything about anybody until you give them a chance, and they might disappoint you, and they might, you know, maybe not perform the way that you hoped, but they can't do anything without an opportunity. And we have players in that team that have earned that opportunity. So I don't care how far away anybody thinks the AHL is from the NHL. The point is, if you're a point-a-game player in the NHL, you're a plus player, you play in all situations, your coaches at that level trust you, you've earned your chance. So by rights, you give that player that chance, especially when guys like Kevin Rooney don't know what end of the ice you're supposed to be playing at.
I'm going to play devil's advocate to this. And I thought we were going to get along the whole show, but maybe
I thought so too, but go ahead. Try and piss me off. You had a week away from me, so go ahead.
I talked about this last week when you weren't on the show, but just hear me out on this one. I am not against bringing up Matthew Phillips or Peltier or Zari. I'm not against it. I think they've all probably earned a shot.
Where's the caveat? I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, all right, here it is. You can't bring any of those three up without putting them at least in a top 9 spot, right? Do you agree with me there?
Yeah, I think so.
Because bringing up Phillips and shoving them with Lewis and Lucic on the fourth line is going to not give him a fair shake. Number one, I would think we would be screwing him over, doing him a disservice. I just don't think that's the type of player he is.
I agree about Phillips. Now, Pelchi, I would slot him on the fourth line. I take a guy like Lucic out, for example. Different type of player, but I appreciate.
I would love to have any. I would have. You can name one guy in Calgary Wranglers to take Lucic's spot, and I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to talk me into that.
I don't think anybody is be talking to that at this point. He talked.
But I think my fear is this: that if he gets called up and he's put into a position, I'm talking about Matthew Phillips at this point here, and he's put into a position on a fourth line with, let's say, Lucic and Rooney, or Lucic and Lewis probably would be more realistic. And then he doesn't do what we expect him to do. It kills faith even more and he goes back, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take and you give him a shot in the top 9 is where I would do that, where I would give him a shot. Who do you take out right now? 3 weeks ago, I would have said, perfect. Send Dube up for a couple games, give him some time off. And I'm not ripping on him. He just wasn't playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Send him up. And I'm not saying for the rest of the season. I'm saying send him up, set him in the press box, give Phillips 2 or 3 games, and let's see what happens.
Yep.
But right now, how do you knock on Dube and call him into the office and be like, dude, we're bringing up Phillips. Slide on up to the press box for 2 or 3 games. We're going to give this young kid a shot. That's where I'm at. I honestly believe he's going to get his shot this year. I really do. Someone's going to get hurt. I don't want that. Knock on wood. I don't have any wood around me. I don't want that at all.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. It's freaking 82 games. It's a grind. We're hitting into the grind right now. And we're going to have it. One of our top 9 guys is going down. And this guy is going to get his shot.
I hope you're right.
Well, I don't think you do, because I don't think you want one of our guys going down to an injury.
No, I just hope he gets a chance. And I agree with the premise of, where he'd need to play. But I just think there was enough opportunity already wherein other guys, like you just alluded to, were not playing well. And I'm just kind of over the whole mentality of letting it sort itself out. There has to be consequences. There's no consequences, no motivation, which is kind of an old school way of thinking. But I think we've seen enough of it ourselves. I mean, there was guys, Dube is one of them, who should have sat for a game or 2, and that would have been his best chance to try a guy like Phillips and see what he's made of.
And we can flip the script here onto the next quote that I wanted to talk to you about. And that was where basically Sutter defended Lucic's play.
Oh, man.
That there's, I'm trying to look for the quote here. I got it.
I got to drink while you read this because I didn't want to hear it.
That basically saying that there's other things that he does. I don't know if he thinks we're all blind. And I'm not saying that I know, 3/4 of what Daryl Sutter knows. He's a genius out there, and I have a ton of respect for him. I really, really do.
Yeah, we all do.
I very seldom go against what he's thinking. But the fact that Lucic is out there, and there is turnover after turnover after turnover. We saw a glaring one against Arizona on Monday night, and it's like it's happening every damn game. And the guy is getting slower and slower. He doesn't fight for us anymore. He can't score. I've got better hands than he does. Like I don't know what he brings to the table anymore. Did you notice against Arizona? Him and the whole fourth line after his I can't remember if it was a penalty or no, it was after his turnover. After his turnover, they missed a rotation in the line, and I thought, finally, Sutter's getting this. He's seeing that the guy sucks. But why does he defends him? And I know, like, Kyle, if me and you won a cup together, right? Like, I'd defend you on another level.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right? I mean, I would.
It's like any relationship. You got to defend the person you're with, right? You go to war with them. You go to bat for them. You got their back no matter what. That's how it's supposed to be.
But you can't do it at the fault of the rest of the team.
No, and that's that. And it's also that sometimes there has to be consequences. And if you don't like them or you don't agree with them or you wish it was different, it just is what it is. And I don't believe in rewarding poor play or bad behavior or any of those things, right? And that's what we're seeing. He has not been good at all for a very long time. So why does he get a free pass? I want to know. It's not just because he's, intimidating because he's a big dude. Like, that's a poor excuse, especially in a league where there's less fighting and less hitting. And I saw a graphic, it was today or yesterday, I can't remember where it was now, but likely on Twitter, where it basically showed like the rankings of the highest hitting teams in the league, and they're all towards the bottom of their divisions. So you can't tell me that is it's a great part of hockey and it's important.
Well, I think we need to have a strong physical presence, but I don't know that Richie doesn't bring that though, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what does Richie at least brings it with some speed? And I know you're not the biggest Richie fan in the world, but at least he's if you drew up a fourth line player, it's like, okay, $800,000, big body, fairly decent speed, has a knack for finding how to score the weirdest freaking goals ever known. Like, he's kind of the guy you script up, right?
Yeah.
And like Lewis, I love Lewis in the fact that he's not glitz and glamour, but he's safe as hell.
Yep.
I like him. And so now you put a freaking, I don't care. You put anybody with those two on the fourth line, and I like it. Not Lucic.
Yeah. Well, again, I think just as you said about Dube, you got to take him out and give him a chance to get his head together. And maybe there is still some gas left in the tank, but it's not playing an 82-game season for him. He can't do it. He very clearly can't do it. And he has a habit of blocking people on Twitter, and I think you and I blame me next because we're being pretty harsh here, but it's just the facts. He's not playing well.
I have nothing against him as a human being. I'm just speaking solely on his play. Mm-hmm. And I know he's probably an integral part in the locker room. But you know what? That tells me something else. When players are blocking people on Twitter, it's like, what? Why would you? I don't understand those situations. It's crazy.
It's beyond me too.
Speaking of struggling, Markstrom, and after the Montreal game, he was more harsh on himself than I've ever heard a player, probably that I've ever heard. He flat out just said, "I suck at hockey right now," and I got barraged with people knowing I'm a Flames fan asking me questions on what I thought of this, and I'm sure you did too, Kyle. Right?
Oh yeah.
And my response was, freaking makes me happy. He's honest. Mm-hmm. Mike Smith would have never said that. Mike Smith would have blamed the guy down the bench, and we'd have moved on, and Mike Smith would have continued sucking.
Yep.
Jacob Markstrom his full accountability, and he's hard on himself. I think good athletes are hard on themselves, and it didn't bother me a bit that he said that. Does he suck right now? Yeah. Does he suck as a goalie? No, he's a great goalie. He's an elite goalie, and he's going to get there, but he sucks right now.
Yeah, it didn't bother me a bit. I mean, it's funny because actually in that game, I thought he was hard on himself, and maybe he should have been because the team gave him no run support. You can't just, goalies make mistakes every night. You can't just hang that on his head and say, oh, well, you were terrible. I mean, overall, he hasn't had a good season. His stats are not good. He hasn't really stolen a game. He was able to hang on for a few wins with some big saves that I recall, but I'm just glad that, unlike the Lucic situation, finally the coaching staff is reacting accordingly. Okay, Dan Vladar is winning us games and making spectacular stops, some of which are hiding the team's glaring errors. But you have two great goaltenders. Use the one that's hot.
When he made those comments, I was interested to see what Sutter would respond to that. And the next day, he thought that he didn't hear it evidently because he thought the reporter said he sucked. And he's like, what do you mean he sucks? And the reporter's like, well, he said in his press that he sucks at hockey right now. And Sutter smiled and said he doesn't suck at hockey right now. He's like any athlete that goes through ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Hearing that he said that, I hope clicked something in Sutter's head. And I think it did, because we've got what we all as fans wanted. And Vladar's been red hot. And And now he's given the leash to go. And I think it's the perfect decision to give Markstrom a good, strong step back.
100%. There's no question. I mean, because nothing else has worked to this point. He hasn't been able to play his way out of it, and sometimes you just can't. You know, it's like when you go to do anything else, you just think, okay, today's the day it's gonna be different. Well, it wasn't today. It's not tomorrow. So, definition of insanity: take a few games off. The other guy, obviously, your support, like Markstrom's been great with him. You see him, cheering him from the bench and celebrating with him after every win. Like, it's a great tandem, and I think it's a very healthy competition. And right now, like, you got to go with the guy that's getting you points because it's not Markstrom.
Have you seen a relationship with goalies like this one? Because to me, it's genuine. You can they Sportsnet zooms in on them all the time, and they are literally working together for success. Could we ask for anything better?
No, not at all. Remember, like, it's the opposite of, like, remember in Detroit in 2004 when they had Manny Legacy, Curtis Joseph, and Dominic Hasek? And there's that legendary picture, I think it was in Sports Illustrated, with the nameplates of all three goaltenders and all their equipment in their stalls. And it's like, you guys have two legendary goaltenders and one very good starting goaltender. And it's like the worst logjam ever because of injuries and what have you. Cujo ended up being the starter, and the Flames took them out in the second round, whatever. This is the opposite of that. You have a very, very healthy two-goalie system at a time when you desperately need it. I mean, I don't think you could, what more could you possibly want from that situation?
This time off and this relationship and Vladar being good right now is the best thing we could ask for, because I think that's going to snap Markstrom out of this quicker.
Yeah, I expect his next start is going to be very different from his previous, probably 5 to 10 starts. Like, he's going to go in a different goaltender.
Does he start Columbus?
Depends on how tonight goes.
So, yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I still think he gets the start in Columbus, and I think Vladar goes back in Toronto. I do.
Well, you're probably right, if for another reason than the fact Vladar was lights out against Toronto last year at the same time here in the same building against generally the same team.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. If you want to go back to Dan Vladar's best games in pro hockey, that's probably number one.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a good memory on that one. I didn't remember that till you started talking. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a...
Well, I remember it also because Eric Francis wrote a really stupid article criticizing all the facilities of that game for one giveaway. It was a tooth and nail type hockey game, and Dan Vladar was absolutely fantastic. And I don't know how you don't give him that start, because that was a statement game against a very, very potent offense.
He in his last 5 starts, he's 3-1-1, a 1.98 goals against average, and a .935 save percentage.
Yeah, pretty damn good. Pretty damn good.
Oh no, I think this situation is actually surprisingly playing out exactly like we want it.
Well, it's playing out how we want it because you're finally recognizing they're going to ride the hot hand. Vladar, we were told weeks ago Vladar was going to play a game a week. Well, that wasn't happening, and now he's getting consecutive starts. Like, this is what needed to happen. What
has he got now? 5 of the last 7, I think.
Yep.
5 of 7. Lots of talk. Lots of talk in the last 3 days about Brock Boeser in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden yesterday it rotated over to Calgary that Calgary was interested in acquiring Brock Boeser. I want to hear your take on this, and then I'll give you mine. It's not a very long take, but I'll give you mine. But I want to hear what you think of even the thought of acquiring Brock Boeser.
On paper, it's nice. Great player, but practically speaking, realistically speaking, division rival, probably don't want to trade him to Cgy Calgary. Price of acquisition is going to be through the roof, despite the fact they know that he wants it. Oh, yeah.
I don't think it is. I don't think Vancouver right now cares if it's to Calgary.
I just think if you have 2 good offers on the table, they're going to take a team that's outside the division instead of Calgary, right?
Couldn't agree more. Agree more.
There's going to be a lot of teams that are looking for a guy like that. The other issue to me is that, like, the term and dollar value that guy's going to command on a team that all of a sudden has several high-end long-term contracts. And at the present time, at least, Ruzicka has been fantastic offensively. Dylan Dubé's heated up. Mangiapane's heated up. Like, yeah, Brock Boeser would be a great ad. I just don't know that it makes sense for the team to give up the assets it would take to acquire him and then try to keep him long-term.
The only way that I would... Okay, I'm going to preface this. Brock Boeser is one of my favorite players in the league. I followed him through college hockey. He played in North Dakota. He is one of the nicest players I've ever met. He is super good guy, super straight up, genuine, and I think he's a really hard worker. I question his defensive game sometimes. Offensively, I think he's got a great shot.
Sutter can fix that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hopefully without killing his offensive ability.
True. Good point.
Here's what scares me the most. Is this not a mirror image of the guy we went and got last Valentine's Day? A sniper of a shot, not the fleetest of foot. Is that not what Toffoli is?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd say that Boeser is a little bit of a higher end talent in terms of, I think the shot's pretty similar, but Boeser's just got a little bit better offensive skill, I think, but very, very similar. And to your point, I think I know where you're going with this. As good as Toffoli's been this year and as useful a player as he is, he, apart from the first few games as a Flame, was not a big factor in the playoffs.
Not really. I still think he can be. I'm not giving up on Toffoli.
Sure.
When I look at this and I look at what we need to acquire, and I agree with you that, well, where do you slot him in even right now? We got to kind of see how this plays out. I feel like we need to get a guy with some more speed. I think one of the lacking parts of the Flames is some upfront speed.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we need to inject some speed, and I don't know. I don't think this happens. The only way that I would want this to happen, well, first of all, I don't know how it works cap-wise. 3 years.
You've already lied to me by telling me your answer was going to be short.
I know. Nothing I'm doing today is short. I can't do that. I was going to rip on Lucic again. If Lucic was part of a package back to Vancouver, sign me up.
Oh, yeah. Sign anybody up. I don't care what you have to give up to make that happen. That's not going to happen.
But
I agree with you about the team speed issue. Absolutely, 100%.
And no one seems to be talking about that, though. Like a lot of people that I saw on Twitter were against this. I saw a lot of people that were for it. I saw both sides of it on Flames radio. I don't know. I just don't think he's the best fit for us. I just don't think.
I just think that everybody in hockey gets super hot and horny whenever they see a player that's known to score goals, right? Everybody always wants a big goal scorer. They want the name recognition that comes with that player. I mean, it's never really a practical thought to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. All right, we're back to preview the games ahead, talk a little bit about jerseys, and send you on your way to watch the Minnesota Wild at the Calgary Flames. Get all your Flames Unfiltered podcasts, team news, team updates, and highlights at flamesunfiltered.com. All right, Kyle. Let's talk jerseys for a minute, and we're going to preview the games this week. And what's your initial thoughts on the black pedestal reverse retros?
Stunning. I love them. I didn't think I would when I first saw them. And my girlfriend actually commented that she even quite liked the look of them, which surprised me as somebody who I hate to admit this, an Oilers fan. But also...
what did you just say?
Yeah, you heard me. But also just the fact that it's just like the font's really well done. Like when I first saw them, like I didn't think conceptually they were beautiful or anything, but they look amazing on the ice. And it's also because the equipment package that comes with them, but they look really, really good. What are your thoughts on them?
You know what, a diehard, like, I'm old school so bad. It's probably to a fault. I actually like them. I do. I like them. I don't like that we get them every night here right now. I wish we'd kind of spread them out a little bit, but I like them. As far as the Blasty goes, not a fan. You know that. We don't need to go down that road.
What?
I don't mind these. I don't mind these reverse retros. And I think, you know what, I think is the most underrated part of it. And I'm pretty sure you tweeted this out, and this got me thinking.
The pants?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pants are awesome. I love those pants.
Makes a big difference. So let me ask you this. Going back to the beginning of time, the Flames. What's your favorite jersey?
Ooh.
I can tell you my worst and my favorite.
I guess I'll do the same then. I would say for the red home jersey from 2004 to 2007, probably my favorite just because of the memories that holds for me and the fact that it did look really cool. The retro red is right up there too. Least favorite, probably the cursive script Calgary jersey.
You didn't like that?
I have one of TJ Brody's game wardens of that. It looks all right. I mean, we've typically had really nice jerseys, and that one just doesn't do it for me.
No.
Yep. What do you got?
My favorite by far is the white one that we wore in the early 80s and or late 80s, excuse me, ladies, and what we wear now. Yep. I love that white. I don't know why. I really like the white one. And my worst one, hands down, no way I can. And it's not the Blasty. I know what you're thinking. It's not. The freaking Ronald McDonald one we wore at the Heritage. That one.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh my gosh, was that unbelievably bad?
2011 against Montreal, I think.
White pants and the
that wasn't even white, man. It was cream. It was brutal.
Oh gosh, that was just a complete.
Are we done? Why would you bring that up?
I should have never. We're going to get done now. Let's preview the games ahead tonight, right when we get done here. I mean, puck drops in 5 minutes here. Winners of their last four, the Minnesota Wild in town to the Saddle Dome. They are currently third place in the Central with 38 points. And then Thursday off. Friday, Flames hit the road again, heading out east. The reunion with Johnny Gaudreau in Columbus. Columbus team that's dead last in the Metro, only 8 wins this season. Let's hope that goes well, I hope. And then very next night up in Toronto, Hockey Night in Canada, solid Leafs team takes on the Flames, and they're getting good goaltending from Murray right now. So this team's a team that is probably the worst time we could play them. We're going to be playing them. They currently sit second in the Atlantic, and then on Monday, Calgary heads into Montreal for a much improved Habs team. We saw that last week. And I assume Jake Allen will be in net since he was more than outstanding against us last week. And
pretty safe bet. Yep.
A Habs team that's 6th in the Atlantic with 28 points. This week we got 4 games. I think it's important that we got to be more than 500, right?
We have 3 wins,
don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tonight is a tough task. This Minnesota team. We're going to get to see Kaprizov. He might be, is he the best Russian in the league right now?
Yeah, I would say so.
I would say so too. He's the guy is on fire. Kyle, good to have you back this week. It's a hell of a lot more fun talking Flames hockey when I have you to talk with.
Yeah, I don't like talking about it by myself either. I appreciate it.
Yeah. We are back again next week for more Calgary Flames hockey talk. Lots going on this week. A busy road trip. Lots of Flames hockey to watch. And make sure you check out FlamesUnfiltered.com. Listen to all the shows. We appreciate all of the support. And, good luck, Flames.
Very much so. And, hopefully rattle off a few wins here.
We need points right now. Big time, don't we, Kyle?
Big time.
See you next week, Flames fans.
Adios.
Get connected. Flames Unfiltered can be found on Twitter at Flame Unfiltered. Check out the Facebook page at Flames Unfiltered. Host Brad Burud is on Twitter at Brad Burud, and host Kyle Lewis is on Twitter at VanLewis14. Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Flames Unfiltered can be found on all the major podcast players. Want to watch the show? You got it. Check out Inside Edge Hockey Media Group for every show. Subscribe while you watch. Thanks for listening, watching, and interacting. Enjoy the hockey action.
We call them playoff! Yeah, baby! Playoff! Yeah, baby!
Thanks for tuning in to Flames Unfiltered. Check back for more action-packed Calgary Flames talk. This episode of Flames Unfiltered was copyrighted and produced by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.